There are few things in this life that compare to a deliciously clean knockout in front of 10,000 stupid drunks, and that's coming from one of them. But the dynamic, and if you could call it etiquette, of a UFC finish is so bizarre in comparison to any non-combat sport that it has to be dissected like an owl pellet if it's to be appreciated to the fullest. So I figured what better way to kick off the second episode of the Just Die series than doing just that. Except instead of dissection, I'm more so just gonna talk about post-fight dab-ups. You know, that lovely moment at the end of a stone-cold murder attempt where the attempted murderer goes up to the attempted murdered and gives him a big juicy kiss on the cheek. It's one of those things that makes you want to put yourself in a saw trap, and I'm so tired of seeing this goofy turn beautiful displays of violence into big smoochy sessions. And I know for a fact that I'm not alone in this because Michael Chandler, of all people, happened to expound on this topic in a Barstool Sports interview.
I think the most disrespectful thing that you can do to a man after he just gets knocked out or whatever, because you've seen guys like, oh, good job, man, good job.
Hey, give him a kiss on the head or something.
You know, like, to me, that's so disrespectful.
I agree.
I'm just like, dude, give me my moment to hate myself for a second.
Yes.
You know, like, because that's where you're at, right? I know you just won, but this is my moment. I don't need you telling me everything.
You should let the loser come up to you, right?
I honestly always do.
Yeah.
And it may be misconstrued as bad sportsmanship, but it's kind of just like, dude, now you're in your world, and I've been there before, and I don't, because it's something other than sportsmanship masquerading as sportsmanship.
Look, y'all know the first thing I do when I make these videos is assume everybody's full of shit. So I thoroughly investigated Michael's finishes, and I can confirm that he has never once committed the unspeakable. But the question he so geniusly touched on but didn't explore as much as I wish he would have is a fantastic concept to explore for the purposes of this video. What is the ugly truth behind this blatant foulness disguised as sportsmanship? And for that matter, why did the let me look at you real quick so you can tell me nothing's wrong doctors allow this type of stuff to happen in the first place? All these questions and more will be answered as I give you my top 3 reasons why post-fight dab-ups should just die. I don't know if you guys have fantasies in your head about how you would handle winning a street fight, but when I'm daydreaming about fictional manliness, mine always ends with me calmly rolling the guy on his side as he's foaming at the mouth and his girl's screaming like Eddie's wife. Because in my mind, I'm so in the right that there's no way I'm fleeing the scene. I'm having a donut with the cops, yucking it up, telling them how I beat the piss out of this poor bastard while not wearing handcuffs. And the dream ends with his girl going home with me somehow. It's every bit as douchey as what these guys are doing in the octagon. So before I continue this diatribe, I just want to let it be known that I am no better than any of the people I'm about to on. Anywho, the first and most obvious issue with post-fight dab-ups is the overt expression of virtuousness after doing one of the worst things you can do to another man. And I understand they agreed to it and that's their job and but f that. When a man punches another man in the face, I'm talking index finger knuckle to the eye socket, that transcends sportsmanship. There is no reason beyond enjoying the taste of your own toilet water that you'd have an instant reflex to dab up your competition after a finish. This is not the end of a bowling tournament. You just beat the dog piss out of this individual, and when his brain finally gets back to idle, he's gonna have half his pay to buy Advil with. No matter which way you slice it, Dana set this game up to benefit men who are willing to take another man's livelihood by force on some tribal shit. So when you try and flip the script like you and your boy did the Charleston together for 2 rounds until one of you lost your footing, you're just a bro. You don't even deserve a man swear. You get bitch swears. You're a Okay, now that we've established the core rottenness of the post-fight dab-up, it's time to delve a little deeper into the psyche of these dummies, because my first question listening to Michael Chandler was, what happens to the post-fight dabber when he gets post-fight dabbed? I mean, you'd expect somebody who has so much honor that they'd console their fallen opponent to embrace the same situation if it happened to them, right? Wrong! No, of course they wouldn't. You think if got thrown in the oven, he'd just sit there chilling? I know that's an insane example, but the fact is, people who do the conquering do not like being conquered. And though it was excessively difficult to find a post-fight dabber who's been post-fight dabbed himself, namely because for some reason post-fight dabbers tend to either have great records or are extremely hard to finish, I managed to snag 3 recent examples from some of the most obscure motherfuckers on the planet: Thiago Moises, Anthony Hernandez, and Steve Garcia. So let's start least gratifying to most gratifying. We got Steve Garcia taking on Mel Quizael Costa. If you got a bottle of liquor, pour one out for Costa because he's going to feature as the victim in 2 of these 3 examples. This poor guy just cannot avoid the post-fight dab-up. And in this one, he unfortunately couldn't avoid a delectable second-round comeback on the part of Steve Garcia. Now, if you're not familiar with Steve Garcia, dude comes out the first round with a full boner every time, which normally results in an insane back back-and-forth war. But before Garcia could get anything going in the stand-up, Costa very intelligently initiated a grappling exchange that lasted the remainder of the round. It was complete Khabib-style suffocation with no breaks from Costa. When the second round starts, Costa once again tries to impose his grappling, but this time Garcia came prepared with a move he pulled straight out of a Steven Seagal movie, flips Costa over a non-existent table, and beats the bloody doo-doo out of him for an uncomfortable amount of time. Costa was leaking all over the place trying to wrestle the ref. It was a career-altering beatdown. And while Costa was discussing what year it was with his team, Garcia came up for the good old post-fight dab. It went how it usually goes. One guy's at a wedding, the other guy's at a funeral. It's just uncomfortable to watch, man, especially frame by frame. Costa looks like he'd have been perfectly happy never looking at Garcia's face again. Now let's see what happens when the roles get reversed. We got Steve Garcia versus Mahashate at UFC 275. This one goes down a lot more Garcia-y than the last one. Less than 30 seconds into the fight, both these dudes are swinging like idiots in the pocket. Mahashate gets popped with a dirt nasty left hook, puts him on notice immediately. As he's backing up, he hits Garcia with the least telegraphed straight right I have ever seen in my life. There's legit nothing Garcia could have done beyond not pursuing the finish that could have prevented this fresh-baked croissant of a punch. Garcia drops on his ass Nate Diaz style, but he isn't quite finished. He panic wrestles his way into another 30 seconds of consciousness, but as soon as they separate, Mahashate falls back and does the same thing he did before, except for this time he knocks him out cold. Thriller pose, bitch. And Mahashate actually does him dirtier than he did Costa. Bro doesn't wait 15 seconds before he gets his dab in. As you can see, Garcia looks like a 12-year-old who's about to get his flu shot, and he certainly doesn't look any happier when comforted by his adversary. Next up, we got Thiago Moises taking on our old pal Funny Skin at UFC 283. The first round plays out pretty vanilla. There's a little bit of striking, a little bit of grappling, but overall virtually no damage done by either side. When the second round starts, it becomes heavily apparent which one got the full camp. Costa simply did not have the gas to continue fighting off Thiago's pressure, and for about 2.5 minutes, Thiago lays some smothering ground and pound on the now buttered up Costa, ultimately taking his back and choking him out. Costa took this loss very well and even embraced the post-fight dab up when forced upon him. I'm assuming it's because he wasn't beaten nearly as horrifically this time. Also, this fight didn't mean very much considering Costa came in as a last-minute replacement, but Costa's reaction is irrelevant. I'm more curious about how Thiago would react in that situation. We flip to Thiago Moises versus Joel Alvarez at UFC Vegas 42. Thiago came in as a damn near 3-to-1 favorite before this fight started, but as soon as the leather started flying, it became quite obvious that this was a complete mismatch in the opposite direction. Joel took all of 3 minutes to methodically turn Thiago's brain into bread pudding, and as Joel often does to people, he comes up to Thiago while they're still giving him his full restore and dabs him up good. But of course, what's left of Thiago wants nothing to f***ing do with it. It's like, why you gotta be such a shitty sport, Thiago? Costa took that foulness like a champ, and he was almost winning. You got your ass handed to you from the get-go, and you can't even stand up to look your lover in the face? Shameful. Finally, we come to the most egregious violator of them all, Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. If you wanted to showcase Fluffy to a friend who's never heard of him, you probably use this fight. Homedog comes out the first round putting the pace of Christ on a stiff-looking Edmund Shabazian, who to his credit landed some good shots in the first couple minutes, but after the gas tank faded, it became a 7.5-minute all-inclusive beatdown. Anthony punched him, kicked him, choked him, smothered him, legit everything unpleasant you could do to a person besides joint manipulation. At the beginning of the third round, Herb Dean finally sees enough to stop the fight, but hang on, Herbo, because Anthony's about to make your job unnecessary. Not only does he give Edmund's nasty-ass gloves a taste test, the son of a bitch yanks him to his feet for a hug, which I'm no medical expert, but I'm sure that's the exact opposite of what you're supposed to do with someone who's just been hit by a fire ladder. And look at Edmund, bro. How can you not feel bad for him? This looks like an ASPCA commercial. Dude's got his hand on his face, probably checking to see he's still got one. And look at this. There's only like 4 frames of it, but those 4 frames absolutely 100% prove Michael Chandler correct in his assessment of this garbage. You can clearly see Edmund collapse onto his ass in a bloody heap of sadness. There was no reason to pull that motherfucker to his feet. He didn't just score a touchdown, he lost yet another year of watching his children grow. You f***ing charge. Now we're gonna see what happens when Anthony gets the big treatment, but I'm gonna preface it by saying that he doesn't get it nearly as bad as he deserves. Thankfully, he's still young, so there's plenty of time left in his career to get his comeuppance. Regardless, we got Fluffy facing off against Kevin Holland during peak Roanski. This was actually the first fight of Kevin Holland's infamous 2020 run, and you can tell there was a different energy in him back then. Anthony was this extremely dangerous prospect at 7-1, who had already claimed to win over a 7-2 Brendan Allen and a 10-3 2-3 Jung Young Park. But that didn't mean zilch to Kevin because he immediately popped off with reckless abandon, like certified goofy shit. And you see Fluffy go for what normally works for him. He initiates the clinch, or at least he tries to, but boom! Disgusting elbow from Kevin completely disorients Fluffy, and a subsequent body knee finishes the job. Kevin got 2 or 3 decent punches in before the ref got in there, but it was obvious that the body shot was what shut him down. And hey, notice the ref do his fucking job here? You watching this, Herb, you silly goose? The ref actually separates the fighters by force, as if there's a physical altercation that need be stopped. Kevin couldn't have pulled the shit Fluffy did if he tried to. He had to wait until Fluffy got up, dusted himself off, then he came in for the post-fight dab. I mean, you can tell Hernandez is still miserable because, let's be honest, that's a really embarrassing way to get beat. But at least for his sake, Michael Cardoso didn't totally leave him out to dry. So up until this point, we've only been discussing the forced post-fight dab, which may be the most cringeworthy by far. However, it would be grossly negligent to not mention the recent situation between a certain set of future PFL Hall of Famers. Hall of Famers who may or may not have dug flyweight into an even deeper pile of shit than it already existed in. I'm talking, of course, about Manel Kape versus Muhammad Mokaev, one of the many smash hits that took place at UFC 304. Now I'm gonna go into a little detail about the background on this useless beef because nobody cares enough to watch Mokaev's shitty interviews. Basically, Mokaev and Kape were in the same hotel at the time Mokaev was fighting Alex Perez. And according to Mokaev, he was headbutted unprovoked by a rabid Manel Kape.
Can you just explain those run-ins that you had with him this week? How did that all happen?
You know, this fight was important to me. 5 days before my Alex Perez fight, I met with Manel. He headbutted me. If you watch my Alex Perez fight, I went fight with Kut with like 8 they stitched up my eyebrow. I went fight with Alex Perez. Everybody think I was boring wrestler, but I was shooting on my knees to open my cut, and nobody knew this.
Okay, there's no video evidence of this happening, but Mokaev absolutely had a little knot on his noggin when he fought Perez. Also, that story sounds so Manel Kape, it's ridiculous, so I'm going to choose to believe Mokaev on this one. Now, when he talks about the second part of the story, things get kind of fishy for me.
So we shook hands with Manel, and in one of the whoever asked me about Las Vegas, I said it was between me and Kape stays in Vegas. And in the interview, he said once he comes to Manchester, he gonna do it second time. So I couldn't come close to him in the hotel. So I told him, let's come take picture. And once he came, I dropped him. And I had to do it because I'm not somebody I'm not Alex Perez. I'm not other guys who somebody can bully me. I come from the roof background. Like my life was tough, and I give no shit to anyone to bully me, you know.
First of all, 2 questions. 1, why did you let the initial headbutt go unchecked if you're this give no f***s guy? And number 2, why would Manel want to take a picture with somebody he headbutted for no reason? At a completely different location. Either somebody's lying or somebody's not telling the truth, but none of this bullshit ever ended up mattering anyway because the fight was a big, fat, soggy dud. Dana had to hire the United States military to keep these Muppets from trying to kill each other. Freaking Mike Beltran almost had a heart attack when he realized that G.I. Joe wasn't going to stay in there with him. But here's the part where it becomes relevant to this video. After all the huffs and the puffs, these effing p***s do nothing for 15 minutes, yet have the audacity to dab each other up like they're fucking Stephen Bonner and Forrest Griffin. Who the hell is ever gonna respect these guys again? I'll tell you, my d got hard when Dana released Mokaev. That was on some Godfather shit. I was hoping he'd go all the way with it and terminate the remainder of Manel's contract as well, but I'm assuming the broken foot probably garnered a little bit of sympathy from the boss man. Either way, the whole point here is, why are we even trash talking if we're gonna hug like it's Woodstock at the end? I understand it if both guys bang it out like people who actually hate each other and then feel the need to squash the beef with a bro hug at the end. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. But when you generate all this hype, all these new people watching who could have prioritized a nice pre-main card dump and deliver a fight that wouldn't even be acceptable for Bellator, the f out of here, man. I'll take Anthony Hernandez's nonsense over this crap any day of the week. At least Anthony Hernandez comes out to fight. I think it's fair to say that post-fight dab-ups aren't going anywhere anytime soon. It's too heavily ingrained into the minds of some of these guys. But one thing that I think could possibly start moving the needle in the right direction is if more fighters start speaking out about this. I can sit here and make videos all day long about how it infuriates me that this behavior is allowed. I could get an official government doctor in here to tell me how not good it is to lawnmower pull a concussion patient to their feet directly after trauma. But it's gonna take the actual people who are on the the receiving end of this to get the word out, not me. We did it with grounded opponents, we did it with 12-6 elbows. Why don't we add post-fight dab-ups to the list?